Welcome back to People of Power podcast. This is a new season for me and the new B1 team. In these episodes, we'll be covering 5 streams of topics: community, education, faith, mental health, and speaking to various music artists. As we journey together for season 2, please like, share, and subscribe if the content blesses you. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining People of Power Education podcast. This season, or this episode, we sat down in consultation with other professionals from the industry of education, and we decided to kind of like just go through some concerns that were a reoccurring theme for different reasons. So without further ado, we're just going to introduce everybody and then we'll start. So I'm looking at my screen and just going round. If I can ask Nicole first, if you'd be able to just give a quick introduction to who you are.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicole Reed. I've worked in education for over 15 years and I'm a mother of 2, but my main expertise is with early years. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And next we have Chantal.
Hi, my name is Chantal. I have not taught, but I've done stints in Bible school, so teaching students there. I've also done career mentoring for students that are in, I guess, middle school to high school age, and I've been a student myself, recently graduated, so that'll be, I guess, my perspective on the topics.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chantal. And Micheline?
Hi, I'm Micheline Quavey. I'm a counsellor in a school, secondary school. I've been a counsellor for the last 10 years or so. And I've been working in the secondary school system in the UK for about 17 years now. So prior to counselling, I was in pastoral care, behaviour management, that sort of thing. But I've actually dipped in and out of education for the last 2-3 decades, I'd say, actually. And I'm a mother of 2. My 2 kids have both grown up, gone through the education system. And I'm just very passionate about supporting people, but especially young people, emotionally, to cope with the challenges they have in front of themselves, to build their self-esteem, and to believe in themselves.
Fantastic. Thank you, Micheline. And finally, Christian, if you'd like to just introduce yourself.
My name is Christian Silvers, and I am a music educator. I am the music teacher at an international school here in Georgetown, Guyana, and I am the founder of Music Unlimited Music Studio here in Guyana as well. I've been an educator for the last 12 years.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much. So we are honoured and privileged to have everybody here. Just a quick recap of who I am. My name is Natasha Kerr. I'm a support worker. I work in pastoral, and I looked after children who have just left care, and they're kind of doing that transition period. I also run holiday clubs and I do mentoring. To be fair, there's just many strings attached to this bow, so to speak, but my main, I suppose, interest in education is the fact that having 3 children of my own, 2 gone through the education system, 1 currently still in it, and also my own personal experiences of being in high school and primary school in England as a descendant from Grenada and Sierra Leone. It's interesting to see how different things or reoccurring themes keep coming up, and I just wanted to use this platform to discuss some of the issues that keep coming up and some of the things that we probably would like to kind of get more support or insight from professionals. So without further ado, the first topic that we're going to be discussing is education and emotional support of students. Micheline, based on your current experiences and your past history, why would you say emotional support for students is paramount, especially in the education system?
It's really, really important for there to be some kind of an emotional support or counselling service that students can access in the school. It's sort of a part of the school, but not part of the school. It's somewhere where they can go to feel they can have some confidential support, where maybe it could be the only place in the school where they don't feel things are imposed on them, where they have a voice, where what they want can be taken at face value, and that really matters. It's paramount. And so I'm employed by a school, but actually my first responsibility is to my clients, and I will see them only if they want to have sessions. It's not us forcing them to have sessions, and it's really their agenda. So we often will have teachers, parents, school management trying to intervene and to kind of get their agenda, basically get their agenda on, on the agenda. And we have to kind of remind them as professionals that actually you might think this is important, that is an issue that you're concerned about, but I can only deal with what the client wants to deal with, really. I'm there to build the confidence and the trust with the client and to let them really feel heard. And I think the educational system, I think it often pays lip service to every child matters and every individual is catered for. But actually, I think those who've been through the system and those who are in the system, if you're really honest, will recognise that we're trying to get a lot of kids through in one system, one agenda, one curriculum. And what it really requires is for everyone to be good and not problematic, and to fit in, to conform, And unfortunately, not everyone finds it easy to just be exactly the carbon cutout of a student. That is, that the system really wants, so that the system will run smoothly and according to the set timetable. And so we're here to really help students to validate themselves, validate who they are, to let them know that there's nothing wrong with them just because they don't maybe fit the required mold, and to help them hold on to their sort of self-esteem or build their self-esteem and their belief in themselves, and really realize that they've got some contribution to make as themselves, not just what the school system, but not just the school system. They're often talking about what other peers want or their parents want them to be, and it's really important for them to connect with their true essence, their true nature, what makes them tick, what makes them come alive, what makes them vibrant, what they, potentially have to offer in our society now and going into their future. Keep their spark and their flame alive, really, alight, really. Yeah, I think it's really important to be that support for students. And when you are supportive to students in that way, they can give their best, and then they can be academically more, perform better and achieve more. And they know what they're doing it for. They can actually get in touch with their inner motivation for striving for success and finding where they can shine and see where it makes sense for them, going into their future, see kind of the point of what they're doing and why they're here. Yeah.
Amazing. Now, I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to share their feedback, but what I'd like to say from my own personal kind of understanding of counselling, when I used to be a pastoral support worker, or actually it was another title, I think it was deputy head of, that's it. Yeah. And we used to get referrals for students who had decided that they wanted to have counselling. And we'd have this list of students, and some students wanted it to be really private. They didn't want their other classmates to know. So if we had to go and let somebody know, it was done in a confidential way because you don't want people knowing why you're leaving lessons. Then you'd go and meet the counsellor, and sometimes some students didn't want to go because they just chose not to, but without addressing the reasons why with me, they'll just be like, not going today, or not go for a series of weeks, and then eventually that slot would be closed and somebody else will be given that slot. We know after COVID that there's a huge rise in mental health crisis, and other professions such as CAMHS the waiting list is up to 2 years. So when you start becoming ready to maybe have those kind of conversations where you feel ready to meet with a counsellor and address all of those things that you just mentioned a little while ago, there's a certain amount of bravery that takes place to say, I'm going to speak to somebody about my emotional needs. Because if you come from a culture where you're encouraged not to speak about what's going on, you don't, for a child, it might be daunting. What am I allowed to share? What am I not allowed to share? And unless the child is at grave risk of maybe harming themselves or doing something that's of danger to themselves, how do we start getting that message out to children, to families, that it's okay to seek emotional support? It doesn't make you weak as a person to say, do you know what, I'm stuck here at the moment and I need to get unstuck so that I can actually start doing better. That there has to be a crossover point. There has to be trust built within the school system or with anybody. But I guess what I'm asking is, how do you know when the time is right for somebody to start seeking counselling? Because for you to go and get counselling, sometimes even professionals say, oh, that child's messed up or this person's messed up. So instead of getting the help, they don't want to be associated with needing help because they're seen as being weak. So what kind of message would you give to the wider audience of why it's essential to have a place where you can talk in confidence?
I think counselling is about taking off all the masks that we wear in society, and the little lies that we tell each other and to ourselves, that we don't need anybody, that, you know, we're strong and all it takes is for you to be, you know, sort of fierce and, I don't know, to give that appearance of strength, and you're going to ride everything out. You know, that's actually often the root of a lot of mental health issues, when you're actually not able to just be honest about your vulnerability. I think the thing is, counselling is a place where you can come to talk to that one person. The confidentiality is like a major key that unlocks that person's ability to be open. You know, you can go out and have that mask if you feel you need it in the rest of the world, but at least if you can come to the counsellor and really almost like pour out all the little bits and pieces that aren't making sense onto the table with that person, got somebody who's actually not giving you advice or telling you what to do, but really just looking at it with you. People sometimes, I think, fear that the counsellor will be putting ideas into the head of the client, or be kind of has their own agenda. And a professional counsellor is really not there. We're really there to see the world through the client's eyes. We're not putting ideas into their head, but we're trying to actually give them the bravery, courage to look at what is actually inside your head, and then to start making sense of it. And you start to separate out, what is it you really want? Have you ever been able to honestly say what you really want, how you really see yourself? And is it, maybe this could be the first time ever you've had a chance to think about what you want as opposed to what others want. And obviously, often it's people who are close to you, people who are important to you. Sometimes we feel that because someone's close to us and they want our best interests, and we're appreciative of what they've done for us and how much they love us, that we have no right to think about what they want as opposed to what we really want. And in counselling, we can just gradually take away the shame or feelings of guilt around that, start to separate out what somebody else wants from you, of you, or for you, and what you yourself want. And then the client has a choice as to what they want to pursue. Sometimes people will choose to pursue somebody else's agenda for specific reasons that are valid to them, and that's okay. It's just about being able to actually see things in the clear light of day without shame or guilt attached to doing that. Really.
That's really amazing what you've just shared, because I think we're so busy wearing masks, pretending that we're doing really well. And we know when we start kind of internalizing what's really going on, it's almost like when you say it or to speak out loud, sometimes you just need that platform to be heard, like what you said, just what's somebody else's motives or what's your motives. But once you come to that core root essence of who you are and what makes you behave the way you behave and who is it really benefiting. Thank you so much though, Micheline, for just covering a really insightful topic. And I think like we can go on and on in greater depth, but your expertise of just addressing some of the issues that are attached with education and emotional support for students, because we really need children to be able to access education. But if they're going through an extreme challenging time, it might be grief, it might be, bereavement, it might be separation or a divorce, or it could be a magnitude of things that is happening in that young person's life that they can't quite get their head around. So we really thank you for your profession and for your services. I know Nicole, one of our co-hosts, has come from the early years sector, but also Nicole, you're an author, and you've talked a lot about flowing in your own authenticity. Part of not wearing a mask is about flowing in some respect in your own authenticity. So would you like to just share a little bit about why it's important for students and young people to have emotional support?
It's really important. I mean, in my own experience, it was something that I looked at later on in life. I didn't feel like in education for me, there was a lot of support, or especially emotional support. I think the conversations around emotional support are being more highlighted now, but there has to be, I think there needs to be a full representation, as in, I'm saying that as in there is access to more resources now, but not that I wouldn't feel comfortable. I think that we would feel comfortable seeing somebody that looks like us, that kind of has a better understanding culturally of what we are going through. And I feel like sometimes there is a lot of, should I say, bias. We have our own ideas about working in both education and being a parent. We have our own ideas or our own cultural implications. We have to speak to somebody or feel comfortable to speak to somebody that would kind of understand where we're coming from, our backgrounds. But I do feel it's very important. We have a lot of, what's the word? Like you said before, you was talking about sometimes, what happens at home stays at home, and we don't discuss what happens in the household. That is something that people have grown up with. That's all they know. And to then venture into speaking to somebody about family issues, about things that have gone on, about how they really and truthfully feel, that is a big thing for some people. Some people have never done that. So yeah, I feel the more we talk about it, the more people are letting down their guards, if that makes sense. But I do feel, and I do know, because of what's going on in the world right now, it's to learn something new. It's quite difficult, but again, the more we're shown this, the more we're talking about this, the more, you know, we're aware of these things. And I do believe it is beneficial.
Amazing, thank you. I see, Michelin, you've raised your hand. Would you like to just add something?
Yeah, just quickly, just referring to what Nicole just said there about often culturally families sort of, or people coming from families where you just don't talk about what's going on in the home, and that can be quite hard to break. I think if we're talking about to the families about sort of hoping that culturally can maybe cause a shift so that families don't dissuade their young people from getting the support they need, maybe in counselling or support, emotional support. I think often people think that talking about what's going on at home is somehow saying that there's something wrong with keeping all the, maybe your dirty laundry, you know, under wraps at home. And actually, it's sort of, we need to educate the adults, not just the students at school, but the adults as well, that sometimes there are issues which are holding us back, and maybe have even held back the parents in their lives, you know. And at some point we have to just recognize what are the factors that are holding us back. There are factors in society and there are factors of discrimination as well. But some of those things are, we can have entrenched beliefs and ways of being, which at some point need to be just recognized and addressed. And we can actually liberate the parents and liberate their young people as well, rather than being hostage for generations to certain ways of thinking or doing things, which maybe at some time in the past, historically, served a purpose, but no longer do right now.
Thank you. That's really insightful as well. Appreciate that. I'd like to know, Christian, in Guyana, is there any kind of, I don't know, stigma behind counselling, or do we have services similar to what's going on in Great Britain? I know every region is totally different depending on funding, but what's it like in Guyana?
So counseling, emotional support is something that we are learning about still in Guyana, something that we're still working on implementing. I get to look at it from both perspectives because in the international school I work in, it's an American system. So we have like 2 on-site counselors, you know, so we can go and get that support where needed. But then I also teach kids that are part of our public school system here or part of other private schools here. And it's definitely something that we're getting better with, that we are learning more about, that we're becoming more mindful about. And I think a lot of it has to do with just like the general influences, because again, like mental health is something that's being focused on a lot in the world. Like people are realizing that we need that support and that you need safe spaces to talk about it. And that for kids, at least, being more self-aware is very necessary. You know, the kids that I work with, that's something that's important for me in my classroom space, but just then just across the board. You know, I teach music, and for a lot of the kids, that's the time where they're not thinking about math and science and language. It's where they come to relax. It's where they come to just kind of like thaw and detox. And I've seen lots of situations where even something as simple as just letting a kid put their headphones on and listen to their favorite song for a few minutes, that is comforting. That is bringing them back to center. And I think that in Guyana, there is a stigma there, you know, like you guys are mentioning, there is that we don't talk about it at home, so we don't talk about it, period. And that's challenging. You know, we have kids that have tough situations at home, and then they come in and they're trying to have these interactions with other kids and with teachers. And it's a challenge for them because they're still trying to like figure out what's going on with at home and how they feel about it and how they should respond, and having counselors, having spaces that are safe where they can come and talk, and where they don't feel like, oh, maybe something is wrong with me if I come and talk about it, or if I'm feeling a way about it that I might not be able to put into words, that's a problem. So I know that is an important, it's a very important thing, and it's been important for me even working with kids. It makes me think about a situation I just had just like a week ago. It really just came down to there was a breakdown in communication, but there was this child now struggling and challenged, and honestly thinking that maybe teachers didn't like her, or maybe that, just because there was that breakdown in communication. So for me, first of all, parents knowing that they could come and talk about it and that it would be an open space was important, but then also being able to reaffirm and let her know that, hey, you are okay to feel the way that you do. It's okay to feel disappointed and to be unsure, but also there's an open door for that communication, for there to be a space where you can get the clarity, but then also grow from it and also feel better about it. And that is, for me, like just being in education, that has been very important. Seeing kids overcome the challenges that they face emotionally day to day, and that support system.
That is awesome. Because we know we have art therapy, music therapy, play therapy. I'm a firm believer of sports being really therapeutic, and just having a structured day where you have opportunities to play, do card games, do board games, and then have that kind of things just flow, doesn't it? So the fact that you recognize that there was a breakdown in communication, we don't know if that student has breakdowns of communications at home and what the consequences of that are. And there are children that are brilliant, that they're, A-star students who lack so much confidence, and they're unsure, and they doubt, and they lack self-belief. And after a while, if you're constantly being fed the wrong narrative of who you are, you can believe that, and you fail to thrive. So the fact that you as an educator recognize that, and we're going to talk about that topic about just having that open space for parents as well. Sometimes because of different cultures, some parents have been knocked back so much. They haven't had a positive experience with the education system. So they think it's going to be the same experience for their children. So rather than being proactive and supportive and going in there and saying what needs to be said to make that child's experience better, it can be difficult. But so there's a number of hurdles. The parents' involvement, let alone get into the counselling side. There are certain cohorts or different cultures that will be very proactive to get counselling. They'll be signing their name down to get their child assessed for SEN or any additional learning needs. Whereas from my culture, oh, you're a bit slow if you've got that condition. Oh, you're a bit this. And some people don't want to be labelled with anything that might make them seem different. So, we really have to remove this stigma and try and allow people to see, as Nicole mentioned, more people that look like us, so that they feel comfortable. But you from Guyana, everybody should feel like, oh, okay, this is an open door. But you're just explaining something that I spoke to somebody in Ghana about, who was saying, we have different struggles in Britain, but there's still an oppression in certain countries because the war is against ourselves now. So there's so many different layers that we need to overcome, but all for a positive outcome. So thank you, Christian, for sharing that. Chantel, how do you feel about counselling and just emotional support for students, or as a student yourself?
So I wanted to touch on a point that you just mentioned on students feeling as though they may not have the confidence to do certain things. So I'll talk about an experience that I had at university. We were doing a group project, and I guess it's key to the story that I went to university as a later student. So I was 23, I want to say, when I went to university, or 24. And so most of the students in my degree were like 19, 20, like oldest, basically. And it's not a big gap. But in the levels of, I suppose, self-confidence, and I will even go to say maturity, it was quite different and interesting to see the relationships that I formed and also that they had with each other. I bring this up because I was in a group with some young boys, and they were, I guess, the typical stereotype of puffer jackets, inside black jackets, always got their book bags on, that kind of aesthetic, and the attitudes to go along with it. They were very much, to look at them, you wouldn't think that they were interested in being educated. They'd sit at the back of the class, they would chat, they were, sometimes disruptive. They would only keep to themselves. They wouldn't really interact with anyone else. Over the weeks that we worked together, I really tried to listen, understand what, they wanted to do, the areas that they wanted to contribute, and what they were passionate about. And I coached them. We went through public speaking. We had sessions where each of them would present in their own way. They would talk, and, we'd give each other feedback. And by the end of it, these three guys, maybe you wouldn't necessarily approach them, were like laughing and smiling. And they even, as a treat to me, on the day of our presentation, came in with suits and little, like, they put on white shirts, and they, I know. Wow. They ironed their outfits, they put on dress trousers. One of them even wore dress shoes for me. And they came in and we did the assignment, and they absolutely smashed it. So it just really showed me, and I cooked for them. So I brought food and we ate together, and we celebrated, and we got an excellent mark. I think maybe one of the highest marks that I got in that specific course. But I think from a student perspective, and I can definitely echo, it's so important that students know there are those who are willing to take the time to put in the effort to just understand where they are individuals, understand their potential, even the things that they're not able to see maybe in themselves at the moment, but that individual can push them toward, and just allow them to grow into that space, that once you hold the space for them, watch them grow into it.
Okay, thank you so much, Chantel, for sharing that. Nix, yes, I see your hand is raised, and before you say what you're going to say, I love what Chantel said. If we can just all hold that space for somebody to have that opportunity to thrive, because you have some examples of good practice and some terrible examples. And if a child is coming in and not engaging and not showing that they're willing to participate, rather than hammer them, where's your homework, where's this, where's that, and really give that child that opportunity, because you don't know if that child's had a hot meal to eat, if they are going to bed crying in the night because they're seeing a lot of arguments, or there's a lot of dysfunction in that family. So, when they come to school, that might be the only place where that child feels safe. But if they're met with that same negativity in another format, that child will definitely fail to thrive. We need to start thinking, well, why is that child refusing to write? Why is that child playing up in the lesson? Sometimes it's because they don't have the tools to access the curriculum, and if they need that emotional support in that moment, isn't it far better to say, how are you? I can see you're not ready to engage right now, but hopefully you'll be able to join in a minute, rather than just really labeling that child as somebody who's a troublemaker, someone who doesn't participate. And then teachers who can't be bothered to kind of like really find out what's going on with that child, because they might be stressed as well. They might not even be in the right emotional space to be teaching. So thank you, Chantel, for mentioning, just to provide a space, because that could be the next step, where that's an early intervention to then signpost to maybe some counselling might be good for you. Just a thought. Sorry, Nicole.
That's okay. No, I was just going to touch on a few points that you and Chantal said. Exactly that. Sometimes teachers focus on the behavior and not the root cause of the behavior. And again, sometimes teachers don't have the time to make time, if that makes sense. Some teachers are given a curriculum. Their objective is to teach the curriculum. It's not, for them, it's not about making sure every individual child learns a curriculum in the way that they understand. Everybody learns differently. And I think even with my daughter, she'll come home and say, oh, I didn't get this. And when I asked the teacher to explain it again, she said that they already explained it. I think it's also about the reasons why teachers have come into those careers, why they want to teach. What is their objective? Is it just for the status of being a teacher? Is it for the pay? Is it that they actually care for the students? And again, like you said, sometimes the teachers or the support workers, they don't have that support for themselves to be able to go in and make this time available. Sometimes the teachers are under a lot of pressure, depending on, working with the students. They might have to work with the parents. There might be a lot of paperwork that they have to keep up with. And sometimes some schools are more interested in the data. Okay, if we have this percentage of children, that means we can get this funding. So we have to push this. And then their attention is moved away from supporting the students, but it's more about the data for the head teachers so that they can show the governors. Because if they have a certain percentage of children in this category, then they can get more funding. And for me, when I was working in early years with 2 and 3 year olds, they were more focused on pushing students through for for a diagnosis of autism, because there's more funding for 2 year olds. So that was the focus where I was working, and they were focused on paperwork and making sure the data was there, whereas the staff didn't feel supported. And we were getting funding, but the funding wasn't going towards the students. It seemed like it was just going to management. It wasn't being used for what they had put down on the forms for the children that needed extra support. So we have to look at, the support for the support for the teachers, as well as making time, and what the priorities are, not just of the teachers, but of leadership as well. What are their priorities for the organizations? Because then they will be more willing to bring people in to support the students. There's a lot of organizations that really do think of the well-being of the teachers, whereas others are not so concerned. They don't care if you come in at 8 and finish at 5 or 6. There's some that it just depends. And again, it goes back to having a voice and feeling like you're being heard, and things being put into place once you've voiced your concerns, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So thanks, Nicole, for adding that. What I would say is the early years sector, even though maybe teachers in secondary school might frown upon early years as not really a real career, thankfully they are inclusive. Thankfully, the early years curriculum covers a wide range of making sure that people feel like they're heard, and there's diversity in their curriculum, in their activities, in their equipment. Chasing down or to be assessed for ASD in early years is great if it's being done for the right reasons. And I think Michelin mentioned it's about motives, because later on in secondary school, as we know, and even in primary schools, a lot of children fall through the gap and they're not assessed, and they could have got a lot more support later down the line. And a lot of the maybe emotional trauma might not have happened because it was being addressed as early as possible. So I do believe early intervention is really needed, because as somebody who's got mild dyslexia, only getting that picked up at the age of 26, I do believe the system failed me. So I'm grateful to see that early years are pushing for that. But, you know, the integrity of certain provisions using funding for other areas is that in itself has so many moral loopholes, because yes, we're getting the assessments done, and then that means that that child is supported throughout their education, but if it's not being used properly, then that is a concern. So we talk about the integrity, and teachers, as we know, because they was on strike a couple of weeks ago, they don't even get paid what they truly deserve. It's not recognized. I don't know in different countries, but I know for the last 10 years, they haven't had a pay increase. And for the amount of work that they're expected to do, there are some teachers that are in the profession for the right reasons. However, it's really difficult when your own government doesn't actually really acknowledge the work that's being done. So there's so many things that are happening, and it's not a perfect kind of situation to be in. But for people who have children, our children are suffering as a result of teachers being stressed, overworked, some not having the right integrity, some getting involved for the wrong reasons because they want to maybe get a higher paid salary because they're climbing up that ladder. But, you know, it goes again into motives. So yeah, you've touched on a lot, and all of your points are really valid, and it really does have an amazing scope on how it links into emotional well-being for children and education. But again, thank you so much for everyone's input on this. Micheline, thank you so much again for just raising the topic of emotional support in education for students, and just giving us a bit of an insight of the reason why counsellors are there. So thank you so much. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope you enjoyed today's content. See you in the next one. God bless you.